Hi, this is Robert Meyer, certified law of attraction coach. Now, what we're going to go over today is self-denial, the road to pain and suffering. Now, individuals on the spiritual path eventually hear about the virtues of non-attachment and self-denial. Of course, some teachings inform him that desire causes all pain and suffering, which obviously has an element of truth. Once you become attached to your desires, you ride an endless cycle of alternating pleasure and pain, especially if you're stuck in the hive mind mentality. What I mean by that is that's stuck in a way of life that everybody else thinks and believes, and it doesn't really correspond to your higher self. Of course, what happens is the social maze becomes a troublesome environment of failure and frustration with a few minutes of pleasure sprinkled in. Possibly the person seeking spiritual enlightenment may conclude that renouncing the flesh and completely living the contemplated life is a viable solution to ending pain and suffering. Well, that's the answer. Make sure you practice self-denial. Don't accept the dull, repetitive working of the hive. Don't cause any disturbances in the social maze. To keep your slave masters happy. Now, of course, don't misunderstand me. I believe in contemplation. Meditation and introspection leads to an accelerated awareness. The fact of the matter is, though, nothing happens until something moves. You take action and then more action. And I don't mean the kind of action that strengthens the hive mind mentality. After all, you're seeking personal liberty and freedom and self-actualization. Your goal is to become an integrated individual, which means you enjoy the pleasures of the body, mind, and spirit. Okay, the illusion of asceticism and self-denial. Now, obviously, most people don't adopt the life of asceticism. However, many renounce the many pleasures of the flesh, believing they will find the path of ecstasy and salvation. Ah, man. Anyway, the deluded individual thinks he has conquered the erring ways of the body, only to discover that his life spirals down into something less than it could be. Of course, self-denial forces him to justify his misery by rationalizing that the spiritual road calls itself enlightened suffering. As I said, you can bet his masters I love that. It takes a hive mind mentality to attach unnecessary pain to what could be a pleasant existence. Okay, sadly, these people live in a world of illusion. Incredibly, the deluded person trades one set of illusions for another, not realizing he has sacrificed a higher value for a lower value. He relinquished what little happiness he had for a life of sacrifice and self-denial. Now, you might wonder why anybody would do this. Why would someone accept emotional pain and suffering, believes he merrily strolls down the spiritual path? The reason is that self-denial and non-attachment keeps throwing him nasty curves and sliders, preventing him from seeing beyond the illusion of the hive mind mentality. Now, the late Stuart Wilde, who was one of the greatest metaphysicians ever, called the world of the hive mind mentality tick-tock, which obviously means, I guess, each second the clock ticks, the person's experiencing a life of boredom and frustration. Okay, misunderstanding, renunciation, and non-attachment. Practicing non-resistance, non-reaction, and non-attachment can actually result in an individual transcending the slavery of the hive. Unfortunately, the seeker may misunderstand these. Now, let's try to gain some clarity on the issue. In reality, most people are attached to their negative emotions, which obviously result in neurotic behavior. They become attached to people, things, circumstances that bring them much grief and misery. They live soap opera lives. You can see it in unhappy marriages, abusive relationships, broken friendships, the work environment, the economic situation, terrorism, wars, etc., etc. I could go on and on about negative emotions and the neurotic and even psychotic behavior that cause unnecessary pain and suffering. We can certainly understand why a man or woman wants to renounce the insanity he or she witnesses in his daily existence. Anybody on the verge of self-actualization wants to get the heck out of the hive mind mentality. Unfortunately, the disillusioned individual desires to completely escape the social maze instead of mastering it. Yeah, oh well. Anyway, the inerrant seeker doesn't realize that when he renounces the external world, he also throws away the pleasure and ecstasy it has to offer. Unwittingly, he embraces pain and suffering as if it were a welcome house guest. Now, in book 7 Powerful Steps for Conquering Life's Illusions, it's suggested that you do this: visualize discovering the pleasure you desire. Now, obviously, you would love to become immune to the chaos and despair that pollutes the lives of too many people. You can live a life of personal fulfillment and success. You can enjoy life your way. You conquer your illusions. Okay, let's discover the truth about self-actualization. And we're going to cut to the core of this issue. The self-actualized individual does not sink into self-denial. He happily transcends his misery. He captures the pleasures and ecstasies of life. In fact, the enlightened individual enjoys them to the max. Now, here's something you must understand. The impeccable warrior, which we also call the integrated individual, actually integrates the pleasures of the body, mind, and spirit. To some you might seem quite worldly. To some you might seem quite worldly, especially to those who allowed religious fundamentalists of the high-minded mentality to brainwash them with sins of the flesh, nonsense, and illusions. Now let's actually discover how the integrated individual lives. The only thing he or she renounces is the negative emotions and faulty reasoning of the hive and the neurotic and psychotic behavior that results from their slavery. The self-actualized individual enjoys all life has to offer. He sips the finest wines and spirits. He has ecstatic sexual relationships. He creates value for value friendships, relishes the taste of good food, and bathes in the delight of nature, and soars to his favorite music. The integrated individual enjoys all his activities with passion and delight. He accomplishes this because he indulges in independent thinking and has cast away the influences of negative emotions. He doesn't allow his personal liberty and freedom to be restricted by attachments. Let's say an enlightened one does suffer a loss. He may freely weep tears of sadness and mourn for a while. However, you won't catch him suffering years after the fact. He always returns to joyous living. An individual who has conquered many illusions realizes his existence is much too important to wallow in pain and suffering. Now, even though an enlightened individual experiences life as his highest value, he doesn't allow himself to become neurotically attached to it. He believes in simplicity, and of course he understands his role as an independent entity. Now let's get a quick solution here for you. Here's the way it is. Life means experiencing pain and pleasure and ecstasy, not self-denial. And you definitely want to eliminate the pain and suffering that might plague you. And it's going to happen sometime, but you can always overcome it. Sometimes you have to embrace it. You just embrace it, meditate on it, and release it. Now, let's say if an activity supplies you with pleasure and adds to your quest for self-actualization, go for the gusto, and relish it with love and passion. Negative emotions plague you. If you suffer from unrelenting guilt and fear, if external events make you feel anger and despair, don't give up and renounce the world and its many pleasures. Discover an effective way to deal with your pain, suffering, and frustrations. Yes, you have all the power necessary to master the social maze and become an integrated individual. And you greatly enhance your power by learning how to successfully use the law of attraction. And that is one thing I'm here for. I'm a certified law of attraction coach. Now, let me show you something here that you can go visit. Here it is. Should have had it ready, but here it is anyway. Right here is where you'll find many tools that would help you out in your quest for self-actualization. It's visit robertmeyerloa.com. There it is. Visit robertmeyerloa.com, and you can discover the many resources that we have available there. Well, anyway, that's all for today. Thanks.